Hello, my name is Caleb Smith with the Rocket Miner newspaper, here to provide your news update for June 6, 2020. One of the things we'd like to note today is that within about the last half hour, did the mail truck with Rocket Miner's physical copies make it to Rock Springs. I just helped unload them myself. We didn't have just one, but two vehicles break down, requiring the mobilization of a third vehicle. We apologize for the delay that going to mean for people to get through their physical copy. I would please direct everyone to rocketminer.com. In other news, let's go over the current spread of the coronavirus, though I'd like to do it in reverse numbers that I often do, starting with the recoveries when they're available. In the Cowboy State, our number of recoveries is up to 757 people. We've had 17 people die to the virus through COVID-19 related deaths. We've had 213 probable cases and 726 lab-confirmed cases. In Sweetwater County, we've had 8 probable cases and 24 lab-confirmed cases, including a handful this past week. The Centers for Disease Control doesn't list recoveries. When it comes to total deaths, that number is now up to 109,192 people, which is 1,128 more than yesterday. When it comes to the American total, that number is 1,821,690, which is an increase of 29,034 cases compared to yesterday. Globally, Johns Hopkins University reports that the overall recovery rate is at 3,071,142 people. The global death toll sits at 398,211 cases, and the total number is now at 6,852,810. Now, one thing that occurred yesterday that we weren't able to get into the print or online update was the Rock Springs citywide symbolic ribbon cutting. As opposed to most ribbon cuttings, it wasn't for a particular entrepreneur or business or storefront. It was to signal to the world and also to remind us locally that Rock Springs is open for business. There were speeches from Mayor Tim Como, in addition to local business owners, talking about some of the hardships they faced. And while we know that this isn't going away overnight, we anticipate that there will still be extra steps that we're encouraged to take for the foreseeable future. That we've made it through quite a rough go, and we're still standing as a community. Well, one of the things that was said that made my heart beat in my chest a little bit strongly was the coronavirus hasn't beaten us. We're still here. Now, we're still adjusting, and things, even in some of our favorite places, aren't quite the way that they've always been. That's one of the reasons why I've been thinking a bit more about bubbles today. Not just because they're fun to play with, and most of you all probably would not be able to guess how much I've been practicing with bubbles prior to going on camera, and how disappointed I am that for all that practice, I ain't much better for it. But we're beginning to hear a bit more talk about individual bubbles lately. Not the kind that I'm playing with here, but in the encapsulation, the circle around our households, our loved ones. One of the things that struck me, even at the ribbon cutting, was that there were still some people in masks. Now, I was equipped as I often am when I'm out in public. Mainly because I go a lot of places, I meet with a lot of people. I'm aware of the fact that it could be very easy for me to contract a virus be carrying it without symptoms. I have a natural amount of allergies. You've probably heard that in my tone over these videos. And a person can still be passing the coronavirus to other people even before they have serious symptoms. Studies range for asymptomatic carriers to differing degrees. But one of the reasons why we're still encouraging distancing and face masks and lots of hand washing and whatnot is that if it gets a foothold in a place, it can spread easily before we catch on to it. And that's part of my bubble, is wearing masks. And my bubble is probably a little bit different than other people. And some of this is American individualism, how we're raised, just how we're wired up in here. We're going to have a lot of different bubbles bumping up against each other and trying to find space for each other. And I would encourage people to be considerate. One of the extra reasons I wear a mask is that even though between you and me, I don't really, if it was just me, and a virus is only something that I could catch, I didn't have to worry about spreading it to everybody else, I wouldn't wear a mask. If it was just my own risk that I'm taking on my own shoulders, I probably wouldn't. But the virus doesn't work like that. Because this is a risk that I potentially pose to other people too. I wear a mask out of consideration and trying to up the defense for the people around me. I know other people who don't wear masks, and usually we're able to have just a fine, straightforward conversation. I'm a little bit muffled. I got to speak up a little bit. I can do so. With understanding on both sides, we can work things out. I've seen a lot of online comments and even some in-person butting of heads over what's the proper standard, and I'm encouraging people to be as considerate as possible. It's something we're not all going to agree in. And it's going to be a while until our bubbles grow. And they'll grow at different rates for some people. Some people are already inviting more people in their bubble, saying, you and I are having the same standards, you all can do that. Some people are a lot more careful about who they're allowed into their bubble. I'm personally trying not to take it personal when I recognize that while I might invite them into my bubble, they may not return that. That is the type of thing that we're going to have to be working with for the next few months. It could be years. I hope not. One of the other things that I was reading about today was some pop psychology online, noting that short-term, people who are still keeping a tight bubble, still keeping a lot of distancing, psychologically, it's hard to get a boost from that if you're isolated. It's not this. You don't quite get the same dopamine hit if you're going out in public and you're spending a lot more time in crowds and giving hugs and high fives and handshakes and all that. There's positive returns and reduced risk for staying at home, but it's harder for some people. And I would ask that when you're out and about and you encounter somebody who's doing it a little bit differently, do your best to give people their space. Honestly, there are some people that I know that they want me to put even more than the suggested 6 feet space. I try to give it to them. It's not that big a deal for me. I'm willing to put up with a little bit more inconvenience on my part to do better by my neighbors. I'm surrounded by a number of people who have been good to me in return. Our bubbles will slowly, and forgive me if I don't quite have the right mix of bubbles, so I can't show the bubbles when you have a lot and they start to form together and get bigger. I'm hopeful we'll be able to get back to that. I would love for it to be sooner than later. I don't know when that's going to be. And anybody who's trying to tell you when this will all be over, I haven't heard an estimate that I could believe in 100% yet. Hope Yes, believe. Faith. Belief is something different. We're all really, really tired and frustrated, and a lot of us have taken a financial hit, and things were hard enough by itself. That was something else noted by our speakers at the ribbon cutting, is the fact that, especially when it comes to the local industry that has been so reliant on the energy boom, we already taken a couple hits already this year before this all kicked in. Additional unrest right now when it comes to footage of police brutality. And I'm seeing cases of disproportional response. And I'm seeing some cases where the two sides are coming together and having a true dialogue, and that's great. And I'm also seeing cases of tear gas and police batons and the images that stick with you for a long time, that remind you that we can all do better. Coronavirus hasn't hit here as hard as other places. That we should be thankful. We should also be mindful of the fact that just because it hasn't hit yet doesn't mean that we should put down our guard. For example, say you got the flu last year, or you didn't get the flu last year, doesn't mean you're not going to get the flu this year. There's still an expectation that you need to take your extra steps to be on your guard, whether it's getting a vaccine, washing your hands more, seeing a sneezy person in the corner and giving them a little bit more space. These are the things that can pop up at any time. And the other thing that can pop up at any time are just disagreements on how to handle it. And I'm just encouraging people to have patience and understanding, even though it is really hard to ask for at this end of it. And by end of it, I mean chapter. Honestly, I think we have several innings to go. Think of it as this is one of those games where it could stop at any time, but I'm anticipating that we have quite a ways to play. But we can choose how we react to the people around us. And I'm still encouraging kindness wherever we can. You never know. That little bit of kindness might be exactly what that person needs that day. And that might be the thing that stops a cycle of destruction or self-sabotage or the blues. Just for a little while. We all have different fights that we undertake each day. But whatever we can to alleviate the suffering of one another, I think we should try to do. I look forward to when we all can be in the same bubble again. In the meantime, I'm Caleb Smith with the Rocket Miner newspaper, wishing you a good day and a safe tomorrow.